Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Author Collaborative. As always, I'll be talking to an author whose book I have recently read and enjoyed. My guest this week is somebody who I have been in touch with for almost a year, and we have been trying to have this author collaborative episode for a while, but our schedules just weren't matching. And I'm really excited to finally have him here. His name is Abhishek Sinha, and we are going to talk about his book, By Hook or by Crook. It's a crime and action thriller. I really enjoyed reading it, and we are going to discuss that book in detail. We are going to question him about how he went about writing it, what was the character development like for him, and how did he build up the twists in the story. It's going to be really interesting. Hi, Bishwatosh. Thank you for joining. My guest today is Abhishek Sinha, and he'll be joining us in a few minutes. Do stay connected. Hi, Bookish Mode. Thank you for joining. In the author collaborative this week, my guest is Abhishek Sinha, and I am just going to add him here so we can start. We are going to talk about his book, By Hook or by Crook. It's a crime and action thriller. I really enjoyed reading it. Hi, Nilshri. I'm waiting for Abhishek to join us. We are going to discuss his book, By Hook or by Crook. Okay, Abhishek is here. Hi, Abhishek. Let me just invite you. It's okay, Nilshri. I understood that you sent the request by mistake. Hi, Arish. If you're watching this, hello to you also. Abhishek, I just sent you the invitation. Can you let me know in the comments if you received it? If you haven't, I will send you a fresh request. Okay, I sent you another request, Abhishek. See if you were able to. Yes. Hi, Abhishek.
Hey,
Lovely. I can see you. No
oh,
glitches.
even I to
Awesome. I was afraid one of us might not be able to see the other person and would have to talk to a
oh,
blank screen.
so far it's
Lovely.
good. Hope it continues.
Yeah. No glitches. And Instagram is being good to us. Let's not jinx it.
Exactly. Kindness.
So, firstly, welcome to the Author Collaborative. Really happy to have you after so long. We have been exchanging messages for over a year now, and we've not been able to match our schedule. So, I'm very happy to have you. So, welcome.
Thanks. Thanks a lot and glad to have me here. And I am first of all extremely sorry for all the time confusion we have been having.
That's okay.
Uh,
That's okay. I'm just glad we are doing it today, and finally, after such a long wait, we are here.
yeah, likewise. I'm part of this conversation. And
Before
really appreciate,
we go, I'm sorry. So, you were saying
I
something?
was just saying really appreciate you hosting this session and inviting me, and then really loved every part of your book. So I would love to talk more about that
Yes,
really soon.
we'll talk about that. Before we go to that, first, just introduce yourself to the audience briefly.
Mm, Hey everyone, I'm Abhishek. I am author of a crime thriller by hook or by crook, which happens to be my first book. So
This is the
it's
book that we are talking about, by hook or by crook. Yes, he's holding the paperback. I'm holding the Kindle.
yeah, it's available.
Yes.
I am currently based out of Bangalore. Otherwise, I am a resident from Bhopal in Madhya Pradesh, which is where most of my life was spent. My undergrad was from Delhi, IIT Delhi, and then did my MBA from Hyderabad. So pretty much lived across multiple parts of the city, interacted with all different people. So my stories are primarily about different type of characters, where I bring in real world perspective of different sort of people I have interacted with, their backgrounds, their motivations, their inspirations. So those sort of characters I try to develop in my stories, and then in a fictional setting, of course.
Hmm.
So that is what has helped me be a writer in the first place. I hope you all take a look at my book and then share your feedback, because I am, as I said, I am very early on in my writing career so far. So very eagerly looking for all sort of feedback, which will help me be a better author that way.
Yes. And since I have read the book and just recently finished reading it, I'm going to talk about my experience firstly. The cover is really nice, very intriguing. It captures the essence of the story really nicely. And right from the first chapter, we are right into the action. Like, I don't want to give any spoilers, but the series of sequence that the story is based on starts from the first page itself. So, I was hooked from the first page and I wanted to know what happened and who did it. And as I continued reading it, the revelations came bit by bit, and I was also as intrigued as the person who was trying to unravel the mystery to find out what really happened. So that's a really well written book for you. And also, once the final reveal happens, you are like, हाँ ये सोचा था पर इस तरह से होगा नहीं सोचा था.
Okay. Yes, so you had guessed what happens towards the end. Did you have a slight idea of?
A slight idea. Actually, one the hints are there throughout the book, but because I have read so many crime thrillers and who done it, I had an idea, but others might not get that hint.
Ah,
I have read many novels.
yeah.
That's also a curse and a boon for me
That's
because
true.
I
Yeah.
tend to figure out things earlier than most people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But then the way it unravels, and also some parts of the story were really shocking for me. I did not anticipate कि ये इंसान भी हो सकता है.
Oh,
And some of the things I was able to figure out as I read. As and when the reveals happened, I figured out कि इसके बाद शायद ये होगा.
oh, okay.
So
Okay. Oh.
till that point, I was also like, नहीं ये समझ में नहीं आ रहा है क्या हो रहा है.
Ah, got it. I mean, it becomes
So really well written book, and yeah, the unraveling happens bit by bit, which is something that one must appreciate in a crime thriller novel because that is essentially what keeps your interest up.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that I really liked. And I am just going to read from the first chapter for itself because that's, as I was mentioning, that's where the things happen and start unraveling from the first chapter itself. So this is day zero. The chapter of name of the chapter is day zero. The event. It starts like this. We are all living in an illusion. Our innocent eyes rarely distinguish between the real and the portrayed truth. The city seems full of surprises where no soul can see through the complex webs. There is much more happening beyond our eyes that we can ever imagine. The reality we live in, the only reality to exist for us, and that makes over 7 billion truths coexist at any time. Everyone has their side of the story, which they feel is the absolute truth. A laborer enjoying his afternoon meal after a troubled work session seeks comfort merely in the shade of a tree. However, those with access to the luxuries seek things beyond the laborer's imagination. We are all busy satisfying our desires, and as we grow every day, the wish list keeps updating. And with these updates in the list, our actions change too. None of us is bothered about things that don't concern us, even if obvious to the eyes. And one's desire is another's sorrow. The zeal to satisfy our desires is perhaps the most common trait of all humans, rich or poor, old or young. This zeal often leads to conflicting actions among individuals, which takes the shape of a crime when it goes against the societal standards. It sometimes changes the way people view their community, but more often it incurs punishment. The morality of human beings defines crime. It's perhaps this morality that differentiates us from other beings. And perhaps that is the reason why survival of the fittest is not so objective for humans. However, someone's morality may give rise to crime for others. The man named Govind ensured that the deliveries took place hassle free and promised another lot to the goons very soon. With elections due in a few weeks, being quick was essential if he wanted to dictate the results. He had a network of individuals helping him in this, and the entire setup was to eventually satisfy desires of the Don and existing political leaders. However, it was apparent that the middlemen, like Govin, were involved for their share of profits and power. It was sure that the attempt would be made again, and the cops were alert for this. So we know a character named Govind is already here, and something is about to unravel related to him and what happens later on. That's what forms the first chapter and what happens with Govinds and the others involved in this particular scene. That's what we come to know over the course of the book.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it, and I had actually a few questions. I love reading crime thrillers. It's one
Okay.
of my top favorite genres, and I really enjoyed reading this. So, based on that, I had a few questions for you, Abhishek. Are you
Uh,
ready to answer those?
sure,
Yes.
I'll try.
So, my first question, okay. My first question to you is I was mentioning earlier also that the plot unravels bit by bit, and it leaves the readers guessing as to what is happening and what will happen next. What method did you follow, and how did you decide on how much to reveal and when to reveal it?
Oh, interesting. So this becomes very important whenever you're reading a thriller or a mystery book or even watching a movie for that matter. The
Hmm.
I mean, if you keep it a linear storytelling, A happens, then B happens, then C happens, it becomes kind of boring for the reader, and then everything just keeps happening. So there is no mystery in the first place. Whereas if you make it just too complicated, it becomes oftentimes difficult to comprehend for the reader. So it's important to have a gist, and especially for people who very frequently read thrillers
Hmm.
or mystery books, people like
Hmm.
me, we end up having curiosity in our head for every movie or book we happen to go through. There are certainly definitely many questions which we are left with at the end of that book or that movie, that why
Hmm.
did this not happen, why did that not happen. So my I mean, I had two three objectives when I was writing this book in terms of the storytelling. A, it had to be foolproof in the sense that it had to have no loose ends, so to say.
Hmm.
I did not be in keep my readers in a position where I end up oftentimes after a thriller book or a movie. So I wanted to close all the loops in that sense.
Yeah.
But having so that it's important to just look at the story from a linear standpoint in
Hmm.
that sense. But
Hmm.
having said that, I also had to make certain twists here and there so that
Hmm.
so I'm also keeping the readers engaged, giving them enough hints so that they are able to make sense of the story and also think of what is coming up
Hmm.
next. But at the same time, not giving away too much, because then it becomes more like a boring read once you have figured something out in its entirety. So in that sense, it was a tricky exercise. I had to make certain changes here and there. My
Hmm.
editor also helped me a lot in terms of how the chapters are going to close, so that you're not giving readers the space that, okay, I finished till this much, let me keep this book aside and do something else. We did not
Huh.
want to end up
Yeah.
in that situation. So my editor helped me a lot in that
Hmm.
sense,
Hmm.
at least pace the story well, bring in the right parts, structure it well. So that was one thing. And then if you would have noticed, I keep switching between the present
The
and then
voices. Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
referring to the past,
Yes.
someone's past backstory. So that becomes important, because once we are introducing a character, it's in the middle of a scene. We cannot
Yes.
disclose too much about that character, but at the
Huh.
same time, we have to make the audience or the readers love that character also. So we have to give them some sort of relatable
Yes.
factors with respect to them. So that is where there are certain breaks in the stories, and we are giving some backstory about, let's say, someone like Shahid, how
Hmm.
he used to have a good time with his younger brother,
Yes.
and they developed a close bond when their parents left them
Yes.
alone. That's how they grew up together, and that signifies why Sajid is very
Hmm.
special and very important in Shahid's life. So that, I mean, those aspects were important to bring in. So I mean,
Yeah.
those were the aspects which we had to keep breaking the story and keep
Yes.
introducing some more details to make it
Hmm.
more believable. So yeah, I mean, it was tricky, but I think I have done a fairly decent job based on the feedback I've been getting so far. But of course, there's always an eye for improvement.
Yes. And I really liked how you mentioned your editor's contribution in this, because a lot of new authors don't value the contribution an editor makes to one story as an author.
Yeah,
Getting that editor's experience and keen eye and observation into a story makes all the difference. It
that's
makes an ordinary story into an excellent one, which I'm sure you have observed through your editor's contribution also. Tell me one instance, if you can, where you wrote a particular scene, but the editor's contribution to it made it something else entirely. Is there any particular chapter or a scene that stands
too
out
many
for you?
details. So when the book was published, the first version, I mean, in terms of editing, I had received too many feedback from the readers
Hmm.
that to work more on the editing and the storytelling. And then that's when I went back to my editor, had a discussion with her, and then the first thing, she was also initially a reader of the book, and then she
Hmm.
came up. with her ideas as to what all she likes in that book, what all she does not like. And one key point was you need massive editorial changes. So
Hmm.
once the iteration was coming out is when I sat with her and worked extensively on this part. Almost all the chapters which you see currently, the
Hmm.
ending to, I mean, where they end, those chapters end. Almost all of it is her contribution because I had ended
Oh,
up.
lovely.
So being an engineer, I just prefer keeping closets in place. So chapter one, okay, it starts here, it ends here. But then my editor's viewpoint was if you end it here, any reader will just close the book here itself and keep it aside and then gets indulged into some other work. They
Hmm.
might not come back to the story. You need to give them a hook to just switch to the
Yeah.
next chapter so that, I mean, they are also curious to know what is
Hmm.
going to happen in the story. And then there are some pages into the next chapter, then it becomes very difficult to break the flow. So
Hmm.
those sort of inputs were very, very helpful for me. As I said, I mean, being a very objective mind, I needed that sort of subjectivity and creativity in place, which she brilliantly helped me out on.
Lovely. Shout out to your editor and all the editors out there
Def-
who make our stories so much better.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, can't thank all the editors enough and their contribution. Since I am also in a learning journey, this is the first book, as I
Yes,
said.
and that's also very important since
Yeah,
uh, once you have gained experience as an author, maybe the editor's contribution is not that much, but as a newbie author, it's very important to have an editor look into your work and polish it.
yeah, definitely. Can't emphasize enough on that. And I mean, it's a very huge learning for me also. Whenever I'm writing, in fact, I'm writing my second book right as we speak. So I'm keeping her up to date on what is my thought process. I just vetted her through the story, and then now that
Hmm.
starting with the writing part of it, I'm keeping her up to date on what all is complete and what are my thoughts. So I mean, it's very important to just have that sort of arrangement.
Yes,
Uh, I'm fortunate enough to have her by my side to help me out.
lovely. Okay, that brings me to my second question. The one thing that stood out for me throughout the book is the third person narrative that you have used in your story. This is not something that I have observed. As I was mentioning earlier, I've read a lot of crime thrillers. I have also watched many crime thriller movies and series. So this was something very different for me. I have not read many third person perspective crime thriller novels. Tell me what made you think of coming choosing this POV, and how easy or difficult was it to weave it through the narrative?
Okay. Uh, yeah. So in my case, as I said, I just tend to keep all my stories more focused on the characters which are there, which are playing their roles. Now, if I base my story on a particular one person POV or this two-person POV, it becomes very difficult for me to express what their thoughts and what their.
Hmm.
So, I mean, a simple example in my story, Jamal is a very small character, side
Hmm.
character, which has a very small role to play in the
Hmm.
larger things. Now, if I have to showcase what that Jamal thinks of himself as a very important piece in this entire puzzle, no other POV can justify that. I mean, it has to be Jamal thinking about himself. At the same time, I cannot give Jamal a POV of his own because he just appears for a very small time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those sort of things required a third person POV, where I can just very objectively say that okay, this guy thinks of himself as very important, and then I am helping out the cops figure their things out.
Hmm.
It was that it was more like justifying every character's
Hmm.
backstory, justifying their motivations, actions, at the same time satisfying the audience's desire also. So if I am talking about let's say the first scene itself, and I have received a lot of comments on the first scene where two people are standing in the dark wood, and I am just defining from a third party POV. It's just like defining a silhouette, and then there is a uh, smoke being passed between these two, and then is some conversation happening. So it's more like a getting the audiences or the readers into that setting, so giving them a visual appeal as to making them believe that okay, they are actually there in that field and
Hmm.
watching those. So that is what the third person POV helps on. But at the same time, it also helps you on I mean, not focusing too much, because I wanted to keep this suspense of who is actually the culprit here. who is the victim, who is the culprit, what has happened. So I mean, just to keep that sort of objectivity also in place, I had to just uh, adopt a very neutral POV, which is
Mm.
offered to a third person POV. And I think I'm going to continue this way for a few of my other works also, because it gives me the flexibility to justify every character's actions, their motivations, their background, their thoughts about how they perceive someone else in that same setting. So in terms of easy or difficult, definitely it gets tricky at times, because you start feeling I'm all over the place. People are not used to reading such
Yes.
sort of stories, so you have to make them habitual. So has its own challenges, but at least as an author, it helps me. It gives me more freedom to express myself, because
Hmm.
I'm not biasing myself to any
Okay.
person,
Yeah.
any particular person in that sense. I'm being very neutral in that sense.
Okay. Any particular crime thriller of this kind that you read, which helped you develop the story better in the third person POV?
Not necessarily crime thriller, but there are two. I mean, a book which is The White Tiger, which I really admire a lot. I take a lot of inspiration from that. And then there is a television show, Breaking Bad, which is the level of detailing and the level of character development they have done. I mean, it's incomparable. So I draw a lot of inspiration from these two works, and of course, 1984 by George Orwell. So the kind of storytelling they have, I take a lot of inspiration from that. But I mean, for this particular book, I don't think any inspiration was required, in the sense that the story was already laid out in my mind, the characters were already there. So it was just about the storytelling, about the setting, which these resources helped me on.
Okay, lovely. Thank you for sharing that. And indeed, because I was mentioning, not many crime thriller novels are written in this manner. In fact, while reading it, I was uh, looking at it through probably a director's lens. It was like the director is narrating the story to you without any, prejudice
Yeah,
or
yeah,
judgment. This is the manner in which the director wants you to look at this particular scene and character, and this is how you should take it.
yeah. The idea was to just keep the readers visualize
Yeah.
whatever is happening around them. So you would have noticed I at times often also digress from the topic and pay a lot of emphasis on the setting itself.
Yes.
That how the trees are structured, how the moon appears in the sky, how is a particular door designed, and how much is it open, all those things, just to give audiences or the readers proper visual appeal.
Yeah. And that comes through. So kudos on that as well.
Thanks a lot. I'm glad it did.
Okay. So that brings me to the end of the questions that I had for you. I leave the floor open to you now. You have also read my latest book, which is Embraces in Ink.
Oh, I mean, I must say I haven't read something of that sort in a long while, in the sense that it's so touchy and it's so relatable, at the same time being so heartfelt. I mean, just to give everyone a perspective on Embraces in Ink, it's a collection of letters Manali has written for everything and everyone around us. So there are letters for alarm clock, for COVID vaccine, for curtains, for vegetables, for for glasses.
This is the book that
Yeah,
we are talking about. I'm just going to show it to everyone. Embraces in Ink. It's my latest book, which is a collection of, you can call it an epistolary book because it's a collection of letters.
and it's
Please go on.
beautiful, and it's, I mean, a collection of I mean, so when I was reading through this, every letter in itself makes me realize, okay, I used to take this so for granted. I mean, alarm clock, curtain, everything, I used to take all of this for I mean, so badly for granted. Never used to look at it from that perspective, as to how much is it contributing to my life, how much is it adding value to my life, at the same time being a pain at times, but again, a pain which helps us grow in that sense. So I just thoroughly enjoyed every single letter which you
Very
have
good
in.
to know that. Thank you.
And so I mean, the best part was whenever I mean, towards somewhere in the in between, I just was taking a pause, and I was thinking about it, that okay, Manali has expressed gratitude for almost everyone and everything. Let me think of what all can I add here. uh, coincidentally, I was just thinking about, okay, I can add gratitude for my parents. The next letter was letter to parents. Then in between, I was just talking about, okay, what if I want to express gratitude for my past self? There is a letter for that. I had to, I mean, everything I
Oh,
could think
wow.
of, you have very well covered all of that, and
Thank
in beautiful words, I should say. I mean,
thank you
your
so much.
I really enjoyed your take on. I don't know how much time it would have taken you to write so precisely and so crisply about each of
Thank
these
you.
things. To, I mean, right from the things to the people to yourself, everything is so beautifully expressed. I can't emphasize enough on that. So, I mean, kudos to you, and
Thank you.
really inspiring to see this. And I think everyone should give it a read just to get to know themselves more better, just to relate to their surroundings more better, and then at least have a day of gratitude in their life, if not had in the recent past.
Thank you so much. Very happy to hear that you enjoyed reading the book.
Yeah. So I mean, there are few chapters which I really enjoyed, few letters which I really enjoyed reading. But I mean, the favorite one, if you allow me to, I would love to read it out,
Of
which
course, please, please,
dear
yes, do.
is a letter to myself. So it goes like this: Dear me, I am writing this because someday in the near or far future, I know you will need it. There will be days when you feel demotivated, you'll doubt yourself, you will question everything about yourself. This is why you need to be reminded to go on, because you haven't come this far to stop here. You need to be reminded that there is still a long way to go. There are so many things you have yet to experience, learn, and achieve. You need to be reminded that there are still many more roads to walk down. So don't belittle yourself because of whatsoever reason. Did somebody badmouth you? Come on. Haven't you had already faced the worst there? Ignore them. Did you fail at a task you set out to do? That's happened before too. And so stop feeling sorry for yourself and finish that task, even if just a little late or lower than your expectations. Because knowing you, I'm sure you won't move on to the next task until you have completed this one. I mean, it's so relatable for all of us. Uh, if it's neither of those reasons, then surely it's either something trivial or much bigger hurdle than you have ever faced before. But you know what? Just remember all those things you have surpassed already, and you'll be fine. Because resilience is something you have always had and always will have. You weathered the storm well. Oh, and also, thanks for being by my side through thick and thin, literally as well as figuratively. You know what I mean. Always there with and for you, yourself. I mean,
Thank
it's
you so
so
much.
beautiful. I mean, I mean, at times you feel like taking a pause and then reciting it to yourself. So
Hmm.
I'm definitely very sure that I'll come back to these letters whenever I am either feeling low or feeling overwhelmed. It's a very good, so to say, therapy. If you look at it that way. So I mean, kudos. I just
Thank
enjoyed.
you. Thank you so much. And what a lovely narration you made. You recited it so well. I was also able to recall it because it was written a while back. So I don't remember all the lines, obviously. So thank
Okay.
you for reminding me also. I've written it so well. Oh my God.
It is beautifully written, and this is just one part which I really love the most. But I can assure everyone watching this, or even I am going to put out my review on social media as well as Amazon. I am going to recommend this to everyone. Just give it a read, and then it'll make you feel better about yourself, about your surroundings. So I mean, that's what we.
Okay, thank you so much, Abhishek. That was a lovely narrative, and I am very happy that you not only enjoyed this, but most of the book so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean, I'm curious. I mean, just wanted to ask you
Of course, yes.
couple of small questions, if you may. So, I mean, see, every letter in this book, whether it's for your alarm clock, whether it's for your vegetables, for glasses, it's so well described and gives a different take on, I mean, your POV on those things as to how you would have interacted with it in the past, how you would have felt about it in the past. So, I mean, I wanted to know about your motivation, inspiration, what made you so creative in this entire writing process. If you can just help me understand what was your writing journey through this collection of letters.
So, mm, this actually started long back. The idea to compile it together in the form of a book came much later on. But letter writing is something that I have done for a very long time. In fact, I remember writing dear diary entries as a teenager also. So
Oh,
it goes way back. Oh, yeah, it goes back 2 decades. So it's been a long, long journey that in that manner of letter writing. But at that time, of course, it was only for my eyes. I didn't share it with anyone. Later, I started putting out these poems on my blogs in the form of some of these poems were out on my blog, some of these were not shared on my blog. The first one I remember posting on my blog is the one where I'm addressing feminist men, where I'm talking about how feminism is becoming something very similar to men hating, which is not what feminism really is. And I wanted to put out my thoughts about that into the world, share it with everyone, and just appreciate the men who are not like that.
hmm.
So that was one of the first letters I remember writing and putting up on my blog and sharing it wherever possible I could digitally. And it was very much appreciated. I mean, everyone loved it, everyone resonated with it, especially the men, which was the purpose of writing that letter. So I was really happy that the men that the letter was addressed to were able to understand my POV, and they really liked that somebody who's a woman is also understanding that feminism is not about men hating. So,
Wow.
yeah. So that was one of the first letters that came out. And then later on, I just continued writing those letters on my blog. There was never any idea of putting them together in the form
Oh,
of a book.
okay. Okay.
But in sometime in 2023, there was a challenge put out by Authropod. Nilshri is here, so I'm just going to address it directly to her. Uh, she is the founder of an e-sign called Authropod, and they came up with the challenge of letter writing. So for the entire month, they had given us prompts about letter writing to various people. So a lot of these poems came in the form of writing prompts from Authropod's that particular challenge about letter writing. We were supposed to write those letters to different people, like letter to a stranger, letter to your mother, letter to your father, letter to somebody you admire, letter to somebody who hurt you, letter to somebody you are envious of. So these were the prompts that they shared with the people who are participating in this challenge. And so 30 of those letters happened during that challenge, because it came in November and they had given us a prompt for each day of the month.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so 30 letters came up during that challenge. And a few months after that, I'm also a part of a blogging community known as Blog Chatter. A few months later, this happened in November. The letter writing challenge happened in November. And for the Blog Chatter writing community, there was a challenge in April. In April, I continued with the same challenge. And for that particular challenge, we had to write A to Z blogs. So, meaning we had to take up the alphabets from A to Z and write from each alphabet a particular theme that we had picked up. So I continued with the theme that I had started in November, and I chose the theme of gratitude, and I chose the objects or the people that started with that particular letter. So
Oh,
I started with the letter A, and that's where the dear artist came up. And then there was B, and then there was C, then there was D.
oh,
I
oh,
continued and added to the 30 letters that I had already written for the letter writing challenge, and then it continued into the A to Z challenge. So I had some of them, of course, merged, but I almost had about 50 letters thanks to these two uh, challenges that I took part in.
wow.
Not maybe 40, but at least 40 to 45 letters were already compiled. And then I went back to the letters that I had already written over the years. And they were matching the theme that I had already followed with these two challenges.
Oh,
So I thought maybe I can combine them and put them together into a book. But the challenge that came up when I came up with this idea of putting them together in the book was making the letters as impersonal as possible. I didn't want to add my personal life experiences into them because people would not be able to relate. The challenge came up then because I had to edit a few letters, take out all my personal experiences from them, try to make them as subjective as possible, so that people would understand what I'm trying to
yeah.
say. So
I,
Yeah. So the letters addressed to father, mother, friend, a lot of them had incidents from my personal life, which I had to remove and put them in a perspective where the situation would be such that people would find it something that happened to them also, not just to me. So I did that. After doing that, also, the count came up to about 50, 55 poems. And then I realized maybe I can add a few more letters to this already, you know, accumulated collection. And I made a list of people that I had not addressed, things that I had not addressed so far in those letters, and then the new content came up.
Yeah, I mean, quite comprehensive in that sense, and then that
Yeah.
it has been in. I mean, looking at your.
Yeah, so the actually the compilation of the book in my subconscious mind, I think it has been going on for 2 decades,
Oh wow.
and then consciously, yeah, because I've been doing letter writing for 2 decades, as
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
mentioned.
yeah.
So I have a little bit of experience in writing letters in that sense. But then when I started putting out the blogs, in the letters in the form of blogs, that began somewhere in about 2017 or 18. So again, you can say consciously, probably it started about 7 to 8 years ago, and
That's
then
quite a
very
long.
very consciously, very focused compilation probably started sometime in November 2023.
Oh, okay. No, but I mean, it clearly shows that you have put your experiences from your childhood days when I read your letter to your book, or I mean, to your past self. So I mean, you have had those experiences mentioned, but at the same time tried to keep it as relatable as possible. I could relate to most of the part of it. So I
Yes.
mean, it's great work, and it clearly shows that a lot of work and thought has gone into creation of this one.
Yes. One point I forgot to mention is that when I did decide to compile the letters into a book, I reached out to a few of my trusted friends and community members from the writing community. I asked their opinion. Is this a good idea to put out letters into this form of a book, and would people be interested? And the feedback I got was so positive. They got back to me and they were like, yes, 90% of these poems would be relatable. Besides a few of the personal ones, you can edit those or remove those. Otherwise, it's a very good idea to put them together in the form of a book.
Wow. I'm glad you did. This is going to be, as I said, I'll definitely be reading those on certain occasions. But have you ever written a gratitude felt letter for someone you know in the recent past? If you can share that.
Yeah, yeah. So I keep doing these things a lot, especially on birthdays and special occasions. My messages are very personalized. I tend to, yeah, go back to the moments that we have shared together. I talk about the person's growth in the past year or over the past decade or whatever they have achieved in their life so far. And I talk about how those achievements or those instances of success have helped me draw inspiration from them. I also talk about how in my difficult times they were there for me and their support meant so much to me. So I've been doing this quite a lot
Oh wow! So I
for a
mean,
very long time.
just like just another letter collection of letters for
Yes,
you, because you have been doing it on a daily basis, then it's
yes, yes.
uh,
So
but
yeah, so as I was mentioning, I probably subconsciously in my head I've been doing this for over 2 decades now, and that's helped me
uh,
put together the letters so well.
wow, wow. And then, and I mean, another follow-up question I had. I mean, since these are a collection of poems, I mean, in the form of letters, but ultimately it's all poems. And you also have written other poems. You are into that zone. Wanted to understand from you on your what has been your experience as a poetess in India, or what I mean, just to put it very simply, the state of poetry in India. I mean, because I have having been into the fictional zone myself, I can talk about that and I can relate to that. But just curious to understand what is the state for poetry, as you can, I mean, from your perspective.
Definitely, the reader base is quite low in if you compare all the three major genres like fiction, non-fiction, and poetry. These are the three main genres that we have. Uh, so if you compare the three, definitely I think out of the three, poetry would be at the lowest. Non-fiction would be first, then would be fiction, and then uh, would be poetry. But over the past decade, I have seen people who are non-poetry readers turn towards poetry, and that's, I think that particular change has come around because of social media and a lot of narrative poetry, spoken poetry that's been shared on social media, and open mics that happen that where people are, reciting poems so well and sharing their poetry with the world. I think that change has been gradual, but it has come about, and that has also affected the people who are reading poetry. Of course, the people who are consuming poetry through the written word is bigger than those who are reading the poetry, but the change has come about and it has impacted the people who are number of people who are reading poems also. Having said that, yes, the publishers are still very hesitant to accept poetry manuscripts and showing willingness to publish poems. They always want to go for non-fiction or fiction. Even within fiction, short fiction is not very readily acceptable. They want to publish long form fiction only. If
Yeah,
they are given an option between short stories and long fiction or novels, they will of course choose novels first,
yeah, true.
which is which is a practical choice also, because not many people consume short stories. A lot of people consume novels and long form of fiction. But I'm glad to see the change. And personally, for me, I feel that thanks, I don't want to take the credit here at all, but I have seen through my books a lot of non poetry readers converting to
Wow.
poetry reading. So I'm glad to bring about that 1% or 0.1% change in the reader base. A lot of the people who have read my poetry books have come back and told and even shared in the reviews that I don't read poetry much, but I enjoyed reading this. So I'm looking forward to reading more poetry by other people, which makes me very
Yeah.
happy.
It would definitely, and I am one of those because I am more into reading prose, fictional stories. But this one, I am mesmerized, as I said. I keep saying. But one point you highlighted is the push needed from publishers. I know there is a market which they have to cater to, and then that's what their decisions are based on. In fact, when by hook or by crook, the inception for this was, it was initially a collection of four short stories.
Oh, okay.
One of those was by hook or by crook. But when I was interacting for the first time with my publishing agent, he suggested that, see, the market for short stories is not very good, so why don't you convert it into a full length
Hmm.
novel? And that was COVID time. We were all sitting at home, so that was the best time for me to work on it. But you're right in saying that it still needs a push from the industry. It still needs some bets on authors like you and me and many newcomers who are coming out with novel ideas. There needs to be some backing on those by the publishers, by the partners in the industry, and by authors like ourselves. We all need to collaborate together and make it more supportive for the market to flourish, to create the market in the first place.
Yeah,
But yeah, you're right in saying that right now the reader base is, it's growing for sure, but it's still small. I
yeah,
mean, very
yeah,
optimistic about this switch with the new form. Uh, let's, I mean, fingers crossed. Let's hope that
yeah,
we are able.
exactly. Yeah, the change is happening, but it will take a while for the publishers and the people involved in the publishing of books to you know not be so hesitant about experimenting with the genres that do not have a very big reader base.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. True.
We are going in the right direction. Probably a few years down the line, we will see a lot more acceptance for the genres like short stories and poetry. So let's hope for
Yeah.
the best.
And with all this democratization of the entire industry, I mean, now you can self-publish your
Yes,
work. Now you can just market it on your own. So, with all this democratization, I think this is only going to empower the content creators in that sense, to reach out to a wider audience. And if your content is strong, then nothing can stop you, as they say.
exactly. As long as you are doing creating content that is enjoyable and relatable, it doesn't matter what genre you are doing it in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you have any more questions for me?
No, that's what I had in my mind.
Okay. Okay, so now we come to my favorite part, which is the rapid fire round. Abhishek, how we'll do is we'll go back and forth. I'll ask one question, you can ask one question.
Okay,
Okay?
sure.
Yeah. So my first question to you is, since I enjoyed the characters in the book so much, I want to know from you which character was the easiest and which one was the toughest to write in by hook or by crook, and why is that?
Uh, See, easiest for me was to write the police officer Vikram,
Vikram.
because yeah, I mean he's shown as very ethical, very moral, how you would just expect a textbook police officer to
Hmm.
be. So that easiest character to write. Of course,
Hmm.
there are areas involved there. Difficult, I would say, are the smaller characters like Geeta or like Jamal. Geeta has not had much presence in this book because this is the final cut. She had a wider role in the entire story.
Okay.
Uh, Hopefully, I'll publish a separate story someday soon on that. But these sort of smaller characters, because you need to provide, I mean, they have a very small role to
Yeah.
play in your overall story, but at the same time, in that small role, they have to be impactful, they have to be
Hmm.
relatable, and have to be memorable for the audiences. So Jamal, I would say, is the most difficult one.
Yeah, definitely. I am sure. And since we are talking about Jamal, I want to highlight that one conversation that stood out for me and made me also look at it from a different perspective. It happens when Shahid and him are going towards a particular scene and they are following somebody,
Yeah,
following a lead. And during that time, a conversation happens where he asks, "How did you know my brother?" And he is talking about, I was an informer for him, and we had a good and then he mentions that, we are not given the due credit, that
exactly. Yes,
we are just given the money, but we are never acknowledged or appreciated for the kind of risk that we take.
exactly. I mean,
And
that is
that, yeah, that made me also look at it from a different perspective. Yes, these are the unsung heroes, and they really need to be appreciated more.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. I mean, that was the thought behind creating that character, giving him a deep, I mean, more like a different shade of his own.
Yeah. Okay, your turn.
My turn. I would want to ask you, okay, what's your most and least favorite part about being an author or a writer or a poetess?
My most favorite part is, of course, creating the characters and the concept for the books
Okay.
that I put out. And I think the least favorite part is reaching out to the audience. I mean, trying to get as many readers as possible for
Yeah.
your book, trying to convince people that you have really written something good that they should try out.
Yeah, yeah. So I look at it this way: every step in the entire publishing journey is more difficult than the previous
Oh,
one. So you are once
yeah.
you are writing the book, you feel like okay, this is the difficult part. Then things will be easier. Then when you are pitching the book to publishers, you feel that okay, this is the easy part. After this, so everything publisher will take care of. Then once you're writing and reaching out to people, then you realize okay, this is the most difficult part. So yeah, I agree to that one. I can relate to that too.
Yeah. And once the book is out, uh, it is getting accepted also, and then the challenge comes where people start expecting the next book from you. That
Yeah.
becomes another challenge.
True, true, true. And I have been facing this too, and then people somehow have a perception that the next one also definitely is going to be a crime thriller, and I'm like, okay, why is that an assumption already?
Yes, that also tends to happen. I relate to that. Okay, my question now. At any point, did you feel like you can't put any more twists, or did you change the suspense in the story? Tell us about it.
Yes, as I said, I mean, I wanted to make it much more complex, much more twisted in that sense. But after getting some initial feedback, it was
Hmm.
more like even in the final part where I'm revealing directly that what had happened. It's more like in a conversation
Yeah.
Shahid and Vikram are having. Then
Hmm.
they are exchanging notes on what actually happened in the course of those 7 days. Even that I wanted to make it more cryptic, more subtle for the open for interpretation to the audiences. But then I received the feedback that okay, if you are getting people till here and then not giving them a proper closure, you are going to
Hmm.
be kicked. So I mean, there are times when I had to settle it down a bit. As I said, I did not want to keep any open-ended loops in the entire story. So
Hmm.
sometimes I just had to give it away to the audience or the readers in that sense. So those sort of, I mean, of course, you would relate to that being a creator yourself. You often have that sort of feeling that okay, I'm done now. I can't put in any more effort. It's coming
Yeah,
out already.
definitely.
Let me not spoil it further.
Yes. We have Aarti here who is also agreeing with our point of talking about the publishing industry. She's saying illusions get shattered and welcome to the real publishing world. True,
Yeah,
Aarti. Good to know that we have somebody else also who understands our
relates
plight.
to us. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I will ask you. Okay, tell me one writing ritual which you have, which helps make you more creative or productive. Is there something which you can share?
Writing ritual that I have been following over the past few years is that when I'm writing, I shut down everything else that I'm doing. The phone is off. Even if the phone is on, I switch off my data so I don't get unnecessary notifications which can easily distract me. Yeah. So all social media notifications are off. And so I try to sit at a time of the day and in a place where there's as less noise around me as possible, which helps me focus. And sometimes I also listen to music which is related to the story that I'm writing, that helps me
Oh,
draw inspiration and get ideas about how the story should go forward.
oh wow. I think I'm going to copy some of those tips. Thanks a lot for sharing. Okay.
So yeah,
Your turn now.
your turn. No, my turn. Yes.
Yeah.
Since you have read Embraces in Ink and you have shared such a lovely review and experience about it, I want to know which letter would you include it in this collection and why?
Oh, I think I've partly answered this. That I was always thinking about, okay, I'll add this, and then next chapter was precisely that very character or that very person. But having said that, one thing, a letter to my sibling is something which I would want to
Oh,
include in this. I think you can gauge it from my book, the elder brother playing a very
yeah.
crucial role
Hmm.
in that, more like a father figure. So I have an elder brother who I really admire. I have never expressed it on his face. Probably if he's watching this, he can get that. I think he knows that already. But it becomes very difficult when you are expressing yourself, I mean, coming from a background where you are just asked to do things and then
Yeah.
live in your closet,
Yeah.
not be very expressive. But I would definitely want to include that letter to my sibling as to what important role he plays. It can be a she for some, it can be an elder sister, younger sister, it can be anyone, but just a letter to sibling who we spend our childhood with,
Hmm.
who we know, who we connect on a different level. I mean, friends become important after a point in time, and then they become the most important part of our life. But having said that, the siblings still stay with you.
Yeah.
I mean, they grow old
Yeah.
with you. They are the ones who spend the maximum time in your entire lifespan with you. So that deserves a separate gratitude felt letter of its own.
Yeah. Now that you have mentioned it, I'm just realizing and wondering why I didn't include it.
Oh, do you have a
So thank you for
sibling?
pointing me. I do have a sibling. Yes, I have an elder brother.
Oh, okay. I think he already knows how much you admire him, so it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Your turn again.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you have written many books in the past, and I think this is what ninth or tenth in that sequence.
10th.
10th one. So, which is your favorite work of yourself so far? Something which you keep going back to, something which really makes you proud to be a writer?
That's a very difficult question.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure. It's
as a creator, you know how we have an imposter syndrome, which is just very difficult to let go of.
true.
You are always questioning your work. Um, Having said that, I would say this one would be the most special because it finally put me into double digits as an author, and
Oh,
also it is something that I have experimented with in the form of letter writing, which is not something that I have done before. I have written poetry, I have put out poetry books before, I have written novels, I have written short stories, and I have always been, a kind of an experimentative writer. But with this one, I took the most amount of risk you can say, because I drew away from what I have done so far as a writer. Uh, and in the previous 3 to 4 books, music was a very important element of my books. I don't know if you're aware about it, but my previous book, which I published before this, which is Heartstrings and Harmonies, each story from that book was inspired by a Hindi song.
Oh,
And the music was an integral part of all the stories. The lyrics, in fact, drove the story forward in most of the 29 stories that are a part of that collection. So I think a lot of people expected music also to be a part of this book, but I drew away from it, and there's no music here.
yeah,
There's only letters. There's not even a mention of music as uh, being written a letter to. I have not written a letter to Dear Music also. I've
yeah,
written
yeah.
a letter to Dear Artist, but there's no direct letter to
To
music.
music.
So I
Yeah.
drew away from what people were expecting from me as an author. And I think I'm very proud of the fact I was very scared. Till the last moment, I was very scared that, the book will not be received well. People will think that, we have come to expect some things from her, but she didn't deliver on those
Oh,
expectations. And yeah, I had that doubt till the very end. In fact, one of the biggest doubts that I had was about the letters which are addressed to the friends. There's a huge chunk of letters where I am writing at least 5 to 6 letters to different kinds of friends in my life that I have had. And I was also worried that, people might think it is getting repetitive. कि ये हर एक फ्रेंड को कर रही है और हर एक लेटर में एक ही बात बोल रही है बार बार.
oh.
I was very worried about that also.
No, so let me clarify one confusion or one doubt of yours. People would be expecting music, but this one is equally poetic, equally beautiful.
Thank you
So, I
so
mean,
much.
they probably got what they were looking for in that sense.
So yeah, to answer your question, I think this is the book that I'm really proud of because I drew away from expectations and still delivered, and also because it put me into double digits finally. Like from 9 to 10, I am now in double digits. So
Yeah.
henceforth, it's only onwards and upwards.
And as I've been saying, you also will keep coming back to some of these letters, as I will be. So,
Yes.
that's perfect.
Okay, my next question to you is you've read the letters that I've written. There are 62 in all in this book. Any letter which made you feel like you yourself would have written it differently from what how I have written it, and in what manner?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that thought also comes when you are reading through someone's POV about something. So, let me give you an example when I am talking about, and yeah, I think I'll quote letter to my past self here. You've written about all those things which we would have done back in time. I mean, we would be
Hmm.
worried about things getting tougher for us, overwhelmed with multiple different priorities, confused in life, not sure what to do, feeling like the end of the day, end of the world for us. All those feelings we have all had, and that's very well captured. But what I would have added to this, not replaced it, was how I'm having a great time right now in today, in
Hmm.
future. In this is more like you giving a futuristic outlook to that past self of yours,
Hmm.
that whatever you are doing right now is going to add to something. You are going to just enjoy this entire ride,
Hmm.
and I sometimes envy in you. I wish I can get back into your shoes. So this is the most beautiful time you are living in your life. I mean, those sort of things, more like a futuristic
Wow.
perspective. So a letter is more like two-way conversation. I mean,
Yeah.
we are talking about that person, we are talking about ourselves. So I would
Yeah.
have wanted to talk more about what I am
You're
doing
doing
right
currently.
now, how
Yeah. Okay.
that past self has helped me become who I am.
Lovely. Yeah, that would have been a very good addition. You've given me an idea. Probably I can add to that letter and share it on my blog. Something to
Yeah,
think
I
about.
would love to read that. Once you do that, please let me know.
Yeah, definitely. I will share it with you if and when I am doing it.
Perfect. Yeah, looking forward.
Okay, your turn.
Let me ask straightforward. What is your most favorite and least favorite letter in Races in Ink?
Yeah.
I'm sure you would be loving all of them, but we all tend to have like Dear Me is my favorite in that collection. So, in that sense, what are your most and least?
I think not the most favorite, but probably I enjoyed writing the ones which have a little humor factor in them, like the COVID vaccine
Yeah.
one. It's a little funny, and then there's also the alarm clock one is also a little funny. I have added my dry sense of humor into those letters, so I enjoyed writing those the most. Wherever I have been able to put a little comedy factor into them, I
Okay.
enjoyed writing those the most. Because while writing also I was chuckling myself ki, how funny.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so like कंगना रनौत says in Queen, आपको धीरे धीरे समझ में आएगा मेरा सेंस ऑफ ह्यूमर कितना अच्छा है.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's that.
Yeah, so kind of that feeling, patting on the back myself कि हाँ हाँ wow so funny.
ये क्या कमाल लिख दिया है.
हाँ क्या कमाल ही कर दिया.
Yeah. Wow, nice.
So those were the letters I really enjoyed writing. I think I don't have a least favorite, but as I was mentioning earlier, the section where I have addressed the letters to my friends from various stages of my life, those were not my least favorite, but I had a doubt as I was mentioning कि मुझे लग रहा था कि ये
Oh,
repetitive हो रहे हैं.
okay.
So yeah, till the last moment, till the minute I hit publish on KDP, I was very worried about that
Oh.
particular section कि इसकी वजह से ना मुझे बहुत गाली पड़ने वाली है कि लोग बोलेंगे एक ही बात बार बार क्यों बोल रही है ये.
No, no, but it doesn't. I mean, now that you have put that idea in my head, abhi tak I had never felt that way. So
Yeah,
probably,
wonderful. I am so glad that for a first time reader it doesn't come
yeah,
across like that.
it does for
Yeah.
sure.
Thank you so much. हाँ. So I'm rested, but yeah,
Hmm.
that was like the least favorite or the part that I was most worried
Most
about.
worried. Yeah, understood.
Okay. My last question to you is any scene that made you emotional from by hook or by crook, and how did you write it by, dealing with your emotions, and how did you cope with that later on?
Oh, okay. Uh, Emotional scenes, the ones where you talk about the bonding of those two brothers,
Hmm.
younger one missing and elder one worried about him.
Hmm.
So when I empathize, I told you I have an elder brother, just the two of us, and the age gap is also more or less similar. So it was more like once I empathize, I can imagine, I can really visualize my brother as to what would happen, what would be his state of mind if I am actually
Hmm.
missing. So just to give it a more realistic touch. So
Hmm.
that was very emotional for me to write. I mean, coping up with that, we keep talking and interacting with each other on a daily basis. So it was not really very hard for me to just come out of that zone. So
Okay.
that was it. But having said that, this was with respect to this very book by hook or by crook. Right now, I'm working on writing a story where, and this has been an ask by someone. So I have to write a story where there is a rape scene involved. Now the problem comes when, because
Hmm.
as a writer you have to justify that, justify
Hmm.
the culprit's mindset. That is a very emotional as well as very
Very
challenging
simple.
part for me, because
Yeah.
whatever happens, I can, in my head I can never justify that, out of rage, out of whatever may be the reason, so I can never justify that. So I mean, it gets a very tricky, little bit tricky when you are starting to write about the girl's point of view there, as
Hmm.
to how she feels it's the end of the world for her, and how people around her feel that now she will never be the same. Always this scar will be there in her head about what has happened. So I mean, that is very emotional, very touchy for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, Still gives me shivers whenever I think of that writing. So uh, going through that phase right now, but let's hope it comes out really well.
I'm really looking forward to reading that book and this particular incident that you are talking about. I'm sure it's going to be a really thought-provoking one. And since you are mentioning it's been difficult, I'm sure it will show through in your writing also.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, any sort of crime can't be justified, but then this is the most heinous kind of crime I can think of. I mean, nothing can justify this. So
Yeah,
let's see, struggling with my ways.
yeah, I'm sure it will be a very good result, end result, and looking forward to reading that.
Thank you. I'll let you know whenever I'm
Yes,
just
please
doing that.
do. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. My final
Your last
question.
one.
Yeah,
Yes.
which one do you prefer being the most, Manali the reader or Manali the writer?
Always the reader, because if I wouldn't have been such a voracious reader, I don't think I would have been able to write at all. I mean, I don't want to boast myself here and say that wow, मैं बहुत अच्छा लिखती हूँ. But even if I am able to do 0.1% of what I'm reading as a writer, then I think credit has to be given to reading.
Oh, okay. Wow, I have a bit different take on that. I enjoy being the writer more because that's the world I am creating. All the characters are created by me, so I have
Hmm.
complete control on what they do,
Yes, you have the
what they
liberty.
think. Yeah. So the kind of freedom you get in all your characters, that's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah, you have suddenly reminded me of something where, as a viewer and as a reader, if you are not satisfied with what the writer has done or the director has done, you always have the freedom to change
Yeah,
it. And that's something
exactly.
that I have done in one of my stories in my previous. I'm sorry, I'm bringing up that book again and again, but
Oh, I mean, you
yeah,
can talk
in
about that.
Heartstrings and Harmonies, that's something that I have done, and it's something that I have been wanting to do for a really long time, where I changed the ending of a particular beloved movie.
Okay.
कुछ कुछ होता है.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
I
That's
had a
my.
problem with that character and that ending, so I've changed it completely. So I understand what you are trying to say. मेरे पास मेरी freedom
Yeah,
है.
exactly, exactly. So that's
Yeah,
a different take.
yeah. It's been lovely. Thank you so much. The rapid fire was so much
Thank
fun. And since you have read Embraces in Ink, I have started with a new segment on the author collaborative where I do the gratitude bingo with the guest. So are you ready for that?
Okay.
I'm just going to ask you a few yes or no questions related to gratitude and related to the theme of the book. So let me just pull up the template.
It's
Yes.
just
So
yes or no, right?
yeah, it's just a yes or no. First question. Did a random act of kindness.
Yes. Uh,
Okay.
do I have to?
No, no,
It's just
no,
yesterday.
no.
My help was
Okay,
here, and then
lovely.
I offered
अरे
help.
ये तो एकदम recent
Very
है.
recent.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, and I was very happy of thinking about that late at night. So my cook was here. He wasn't in a very good mood, very visibly. Probably he would have had some argument at home. So I went downstairs. I got two ice creams for each of us, and then I was like, "Oh, bhai, ice
Oh, how
cream."
lovely. Wonderful. So nice. Okay, next one. Paid gratitude to an object.
No,
Okay. Third one. Wrote a gratitude letter.
no.
Okay. Next one. Said sorry to someone in the last 24 hours.
Yes, at the start of this conversation,
So, yes,
and I'm deeply sorry for that.
yes.
Yeah, but
एकदम
yes.
ताजा ताजा. Okay. Next one. Said thank you to someone in the last 24 hours.
Yes, I keep saying thank you. I keep expressing that way.
Lovely. Hugged someone in the last 24 hours.
What?
Hugged someone. Give a hug to someone.
Hug? No, no.
Okay. अभी अभी जाओ और भाई को हग करो इसके बाद.
I need to meet him probably, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Next one. Said something nice or paid a compliment to someone in the last 24 hours. अभी ये भी
Gen-
ताजा ही हुआ है. You
yes.
said so many nice things to me.
I genuinely meant it. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
not that.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Lovely. Next one. Forgave someone who hurt you.
Yes.
Great. Yeah,
Uh,
it's such a wonderful feeling, like lighthearted feeling for ourselves also,
yeah.
right?
True. 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 We can't keep ourselves held in the chains for too long. We
Yeah,
have to just ultimately move on.
exactly. Next one. Helped someone without any motive or expectations.
Yes.
Lovely. Next one. Gave someone a shout out in the last 24 hours.
No.
Okay. Next one. Listen to someone with empathy and without judgment.
Yes. Many a times.
Great.
I think I am the agony aunt of my group. People just come with their different sort of rants
Yeah,
from
I
different.
can relate to that feeling. Okay. Next one. Spend quiet time alone outside.
Recently, or I mean, in general. In general, yes.
In generally, yeah.
Yes.
Recently, maybe, probably. Yeah.
Yes.
Next,
Yes. Yes.
next one. Did not complain a whole day.
No,
ये
that's not.
बहुत difficult है, I know.
Yeah, that's not me.
Okay. Next one. Wrote three things you like about yourself.
No.
Oh, you need to start on your self love and self care manual.
Yeah, I think that is something which has been pending for a long time, which I've been thinking to, because oftentimes I become just too self-critical, and then this is the kind of feedback I receive from others, that you need to start appreciating what you have achieved, what you have done, and what you do. So yeah,
Yeah,
probably this is a feedback
start
and
doing it.
eye opener for me.
Okay, next one. Wrote three things you like about your parents.
No.
Oh, ये भी करना पड़ेगा.
Yeah, I think I need to be more expressive to the people closer to me in that sense.
Yes. Okay, next one. Wrote three things you like about someone you envy.
Someone I envy, yes,
Oh,
definitely.
lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. Next one. Wrote three things you like about a friend or a colleague.
Uh, yes, I have.
Great. Okay, next one. Helped or mentored or shared knowledge with someone.
Yes.
Great. Next one. Watched the sunset in the past month.
In the past month, yeah. I was in Nainital, Uttarakhand with my parents in the last week of December. So too many
Oh, lovely.
good sunset views we have
Oh, it
had.
must have been
It
wonderful.
was amazing. It was just beautiful.
Great. Next one. Observed or appreciated nature and its elements.
Yeah. I mean, the same trip.
Yeah, Uttarakhand, of course.
Yes.
Next one. Sat in the sunlight in the past week.
Sat in the sunlight. Yes,
In the
yes.
past week.
In the past, oh, okay, we are already 10 days in the year. No. Then I think it's a no.
Okay. Next one. Made someone laugh or smile in the past 24 hours.
No, I'll have
Yeah,
to
अभी
think about that.
तो किया मेरे साथ हो
Oh,
गया
okay,
हाँ
then
हो गया.
let's
Yes.
count it as a yes.
Okay, next one. Turned or looked at a negative situation in a positive manner.
Very difficult. I can't recall. I am sure I would have done this for sure, but very difficult to recall. I
मतलब
go
किया
with,
तो होगा. It's okay.
हाँ, किया
But you
होगा.
don't recall particularly what situation.
Yeah,
So it's fine.
exactly.
Okay, next one. Did something this month that you have been wanting to do for a long time.
Long time. Yes, I can say I wanted to just take my parents
On a vacation. Yeah. Okay. Uh, yeah, we lost you for a while. I think you got an audio call in between.
I was getting a call, yes, but
Yeah. Okay. And the last one. Took ownership or responsibility for your mistake.
yes, always.
Lovely. You have
Yeah.
done very well on some of the things, and there
How
were
much did I
a few
score?
things.
Is there a scoring?
So there's no scoring, but you did say no more than a few times. So
Okay.
probably you need to start appreciating yourself and the people close to you more. I think that's the
Reflection.
feedback.
Yeah. Will you be able to share this bingo with me? I just wanted to take some.
Surely, yes. I will share the template with you. You can share it on your stories by ticking it.
Exactly. Yeah. That'll be great. That'll be great.
Great. This was so wonderful, and I loved how honest you were with the bingo, and otherwise, also, you shared lovely tips about your writing process and everything else. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And before I let you go, I do this with every guest because I want to call them again to my show. So I want to ask you, when is your next book coming out?
So I have a mental deadline of April to finish the manuscript. I am lagging behind pathetically. I think you can sense I have been having a very difficult, very tough time taking out time for promoting or writing my book. So I have a mental deadline of April. So probably towards the end of this year is when this will be out. But having said that, I have very recently gotten 3 short stories published in different anthologies. I can share those
Oh,
with you.
yes, please do.
Yeah, I will share those. But the full length novel is something which you'll have to wait for a longer time
So
because of my.
I am assuming, since you said the next end of next year, 2025, this year, sorry,
Yeah.
end of 2025. So I am mentally blocking January 2026 for our next
Oh,
episode.
yeah. Let's do that. Let's do that around the same time.
This should also motivate both of us to work on our respective books.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do that. Let's do it around the same time.
Yeah. I look forward to hosting you again, same time next year,
Likewise,
probably
likewise.
earlier than that.
Oh,
Let's
yeah,
hope
yeah.
for the best.
We'll definitely talk about that. And thank you so much
Yeah,
for having me here. This was a lovely chat. Got to know more about, I mean, got to learn many new things from you. And
same
thank
here.
you so much for the amazing work you have created for all of
Thank
us. Really
you so
appreciate that.
much. I also thoroughly enjoyed by hook or by crook. So whoever is listening to us, go check out our books. My book, Embraces in Ink, is a poetry collection of letters. Uh, his book is also available on Kindle Limit Unlimited. Both of us, our books are on KU, and his book is a crime thriller novel. Do check it out. By hook or by crook, available on Kindle and also as paperbacks. I'm sure. You can reach out to the author himself if you want signed copies. So he's open to that also as well. You can reach out to him.
Perfect.
And since my book is not yet available in paperback, you can reach out to me for the link or for review copies. We are also open to that. So reach out to us and do check out our books on Amazon. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to us. And once again, thank you for being such a wonderful guest. I look forward to hosting you again sometime in 2026, early 2026 or end of
Late
2025.
25. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks a lot, Manali. I had a great time. Thanks
Yeah,
everyone.
bye. Have a great weekend.
Bye.